Hi, I'm Allison Gollin, and I am here with my friends Jenn Mazzochi and Melissa Antinoff. We are Educate Her Collective, and today we are going to be talking about the best conference advice ever. It is early November of 2025, and we in New Jersey have parent teacher conferences coming up all this month. And I'm sure around the country it is the same thing for everyone else. So we would love to give some tips and tricks to educators about how to walk into their parent teacher conferences feeling confident. I'm a school social worker. Once again, I know we introduced ourselves last time, but I am a school social worker on the child study team in my district in New Jersey, and I'm going to pass it off to Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa Antinoff. I am currently a gifted and talented teacher. I am the 2019 Burlington County Teacher of the Year and the 2020 Bonnie Campbell Hill National Literacy Leader. And I have some great tips for conferences. Um, I have a story to tell you about what not to do so that you know what to do. So, a friend of mine was telling me this story that she went to her son's parent teacher conference, and there were two teachers, a math science teacher and a humanities, language arts, and social studies teacher. And the humanities teacher looked at her and said, "Your son owes me so much work." And my friend was thinking, "I'm going to kill him when I get home." And so this was back when we had grade books. So we teachers, for those of you that are younger, we would have to take a ruler because the boxes were very small. And so he put a ruler against the son's name, and he goes, hmm. And he turns the page, he goes, hmm. It's getting a little embarrassing now. So the math science teacher says, "Let me tell you all the good things about your son." And at the end, of course, this teacher had the wrong child and he didn't have the decency to apologize. And so my mother is a retired teacher. And so when I was in college, she told me that she had had an experience like this along with my friend. And so she gave me some of the best advice. You're going to start with a folder for every child, a big index card. I like the 6x8s, and a post it. So I can reuse the folders. I put every child's name, the day, and the time of the conference on it. And I do the same for the index cards. Because if you're like me, you may drop every single folder and then all the papers fall out. So now everything is labeled. Um, I make sure that I have copies of any paper assessments that have gone home. And if you didn't do that, that's fine. Just do it in the future. But anything that's going on the report card, make sure you have copies of. If you teach elementary, it's really important to have examples of grade level work so you can talk about where that child is compared to other kids in their grade level. And so on the index card, as an elementary teacher, I wrote every subject and the strengths and goals for that child. I don't call them weaknesses. I say one goal we're going to work on the next marking period. And so I write that for every subject. So if you're middle school or high school, you're going to write strengths and goals for what you teach and then also for behavior. And so I invite the child to the conference. We did this years ago when I taught fourth grade, and I like to have the child involved. And then as you're going through all the things they do well, then you can say, one goal I have for this marking period is for this child to talk less, or for them to raise their hand more, or for them to ask me for help, all the things that you know you want the parents to know. And then I end the conference with, these are the things you can do to help your child at home. If it's elementary, read to them every day, go over math facts, have them read to you. If it's middle school and high school, you should still be reading to them every day. And we should do a talk about
Mm.
reading aloud. Um, and talk to them about their work. And so I always start with a positive, all the things they do really well. And I'm going to give you a really quick hint for that child. A really good positive, and it doesn't have to be true, is that their smile lights up the room because their
Hmm.
parents want to know that you love that child and
Absolutely.
that you get them. And especially for that child, if you say something that wonderful, that parent is going to want to work with you. So that's a really nice strength to put. And so you start with the strengths and then you end with the goals and how the parents can help the child. And that should get you all working together as a team.
I love that, Melissa.
Thank
That's
you.
great. So
Thank you.
I'm coming from the lens of co-teaching. And as you're telling this, I'm like, okay, so, I do very similar, not so much with the index cards and the post-it notes, but with my co-teachers, we have quick conversations, especially for the parents that we know we're definitely going to see. We have a shared Google Doc where we'll write down some of the strengths that we have and some of the goals. I love that. The goals that we're going to have so that
Hmm.
both of us are on the same page. We do this not only before conferences, but if a parent emails both of us, we either make sure that both of us are on the response back, or if one of us responds to them, we forward and let the other one know, hey, this is what I said about Caleb, or this is what I said about Sarah, so that they are on the same page and they know that we're both on the same page. So the parent's not hearing one thing from one of us and the complete opposite from the other one.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
love that. Do you bring, so that doc is what you bring to the parent conference? So you have all the notes in front of you?
Yeah, so I mean, this day and age with the computers being the way they are, honestly,
Yeah.
I sit at a conference with my laptop open in front of me,
Hmm.
purely so that I can like look at the notes there.
Mhm.
Once I know, I sometimes can turn it and share. So I'll just share like my grade book because I can easily show the individual grade reports. So I'll just turn the laptop and share with the parents. Obviously, not what me and my co-teacher have shared in our
Right.
document,
But the
but
picture,
I'll share like,
yes.
here's the history of all of their grades, and I'll also encourage them, are you getting on the parent portal?
So
Because
smart.
I'm still, this day and age, 2025, surprised how many parents aren't checking the online grades, but they're all there for them to see
Hmm.
all marking period long.
Mhm.
So I find conferences to be a really good time to explain that to them and show them, so that even if it's November, they can get set up for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
That's great. I did forget about things being online, coming from the elementary perspective. So when I have had online tests and things, I have all the tabs open for whomever I'm talking about. So I can show them the data from the online math program or whatever we're doing. So, so smart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really smart. As a school social worker, I don't lead parent teacher conferences in the same way that the two of you do. But I will say that one of the things that I frequently talk to the teachers that I work with really closely about is talking about a struggle in a strengths based way, right?
Mhm.
So starting the conversation in a way that sounds like, okay, we're all on the same team and the team is team child.
Love it.
I
So
like that.
I also like hearing from the parent whether or not they're seeing some of the things that we're seeing at school, if they are struggles, if they're seeing those things at home, because then it's easier to have the conversation. Um, I'm sure we've all been in situations where the parent says, "Oh, I've never seen any of these behaviors at home," and that could be true. It's a very different environment, school to home. However, I do think that if you if it's probed a little bit further, yeah, maybe sometimes things are showing up, but that's how we can link. Yeah, your child's having difficulty reading, and then what we can do is kind of like tie the strength to whatever the struggle is. What do they really enjoy doing at home, and can we just have mom and dad or brother or sister or aunt or uncle or grandparent, whoever, guardian, snuggle with the child at night and read to them? Like how can we make, one of the things that I always think about is like, how can we make education a little cozier? Because I feel
Mhm.
like right now it is like we're moving from one thing to the next. But how can we bring it back to cozy, which I think it probably was a little bit more when we were younger.
I love that.
So, any other tips or tricks that the two of you have. Melissa, you pulled out your awesome, that was great.
Yes, the
No, that
visual.
was really, really helpful. And the visual, it made so much sense. And it's an actionable way to organize yourself going into what could be a really overwhelming situation.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, what if you know that you are going into a parent teacher conference with a parent that's notoriously been kind of tough in the past with either you or colleagues of yours? How do you approach that?
Prepare. Prepare.
And
So
what does
take
that look like?
Melissa's method and make sure that you know what you're going to say. Have your facts in order, and also make sure you have some strengths. Know what strengths you're going to state, because you can't go in saying all of the negatives. So you need to come in with the kill them with kindness method.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
really get them on your side, because if people have told you it's a difficult conversation, figure out how can you keep this conversation. I like to talk about it above the line. There's this book, Conversations Worth Having, and it talks about how you should keep the conversations above the line, because above the line conversations are positive and more appreciative. Whereas if you go below the line, that's when you start to become toxic, and no one wants to be criticized or hear negative comments. So prepare and stay above that line.
And to piggyback on that, to stay above that line and to be prepared, one of the things I do for behavior is I keep a log. If there's a child I have to talk to over and over and over, I will take a simple notebook and I will, just for that child, I have them for different children. I don't mix them all up in one. And I will write the date and what I said and what the child said or did instead and what my consequence was. And I also keep an email log and a phone call log in the same notebook for each child so that I always have a record of what I have done with that child. And it sounds like it's a lot, but it's really not. You can make little tiny notes. But when you have a record of, I had to speak to your child during math and during science and during social studies, oh, during reading was 3 times, all in this day, parents really can't argue with that.
Mhm.
And then you can say to them, now let's talk about how we can turn this around so that he or she is successful. Like you
Yeah,
said, stay
good
above the
advice.
line. What can we do to help your child improve?
Great advice.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Melissa, what were you going to say before I came in and took us off?
I think I said it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, and I would think as a teacher, behavior is probably one of the more difficult things to discuss with parents, right? Like the academics seems to be a more concrete, like, hey, this is where they're supposed to be, and this is where your child's functioning, and then that is probably a lot more understandable to parents than when you're first starting to get into like emotional dysregulation or behavioral difficulties.
Yeah.
Because I think that hits a nerve. So that can be really hard. And it's also very hard to put positive language on that sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes the teacher may be so frustrated that they forget, okay, this is somebody's baby. And
Right.
you need to step back and you need to say this a little less critically. Sometimes it comes out too critical, I think. So, and
I
everybody
agree.
takes that to heart, the behavior to heart. So I think that's why that's probably the hardest.
Yeah, one of the things that I talk about in my professional developments is Goldilocks language, like not coming in too hot, not coming in too cold and removed, and like, but just right. And it sometimes it takes a minute to think about what is just right.
And it takes practice. As a new teacher, I might write a script. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You could say to the parents, you know, I wrote all my thoughts down and I want to tell you how your child is doing. And I don't see why you can't read that and then look at them and say, all right, what are you thinking?
Yeah. Ladies,
So
this has
true.
been some wonderful advice. I hope that we've given people something to think about. I
Mhm.
think it's the best conference advice ever, and I'm definitely going to take some of this with me.
Definitely.
Yep. Ever in all caps. That's right.
There we go. Exactly. All right. Well, until
All right.
next time, I think this
Yes.
was great.
Thank you. Thanks so
And,
much, everyone.
and if you that are watching this have any questions, put them down in the comments and we will be
Mhm.
happy to answer them.
Yes,
Definitely.
absolutely. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.